Hello, Professor Stiles. Today I'm going to be talking about my author study, and I chose to do it on Amy Kurzweil. And she is the author of Flying Couch, which is a graphic novel. And that is the graphic novel that I chose during our graphic novel block. So I was very interested in her story, and while I was reading it, I was getting these insights into her life as well, so it made me very interested, and I knew right away who I wanted to do this study on. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is her accomplishments. She graduated with a bachelor's degree from Stanford, and she's also a teacher. So, she teaches in the Parsons New School for Design and the Fashion Institute of Technology. And she previously taught in the New York City public school system. So, I thought that was very telling of where she was coming from in her graphic novel. A teacher background. I'm sure she has some understanding of adolescent psychology and what they would be interested in with reading interests is what I mean. And, I think she really has an understanding about what adolescents are going through. So that was interesting to find out. And she's also a cartoonist, and her comics have actually been published in The New Yorker. So she's also very successful. And Flying Couch was published in 2016. So her father is Ray Kurzweil, and he is actually a very successful man, and he's an inventor, a writer, and he has published 5 books himself. So, as an inventor, he invented the first print-to-speech reading machines for the blind and the first text-to-speech synthesizer. So he's very popular, and he has been named the ultimate thinking machine by Forbes magazine, a restless genius by the Wall Street Journal, and the rightful heir to Thomas Edison by Inc. magazine. And he's also won the National Medal of Technology, and President Bill Clinton himself inducted him into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, which I read it, and I think there are only 21 inventors in the Hall of Fame. So it's a very amazing honor. So he's a very successful man. So, when I was finding out about Ray, it made me very interested in their relationship, Amy and Ray's relationship, and how, as parents, sometimes you put pressure on your children to do well, make their own mark, and I was wondering if Amy had felt pressure by her father to be as successful, or if, what Ray's thoughts were about Amy's work. And I actually found a statement on Flying Couch from Ray himself. So he states that Amy weaves her own coming-of-age story as a young Jewish artist into the narrative of her mother, a psychologist, and Bubby, her grandmother, a World War II survivor who escaped from the Warsaw Ghetto by disguising herself as a Gentile. So that's the synopsis of the novel I wanted to give you. And then he goes on to say that it is a real testimony to investigate the legacy of trauma, the magic of family stories, and the meaning of home. And he claims that Amy traces the way our memories shape who we become. The result is a bold illustrated memoir. So that's really a synopsis of her work. I was very impressed that he put a statement out on it, and what led me to choose what I wanted to focus on with this assignment. So with the classifications of Carol Jenkins and author studies that you provided us, I thought the one that fits Amy Kurzweil the best, and the one I'm most interested in, is the first type, that focuses on an author study as a literary biography, in which students make connections between the author's life and work. So I think this classification can relate to history and secondary sources. So as a history teacher, you want to make sure your students can analyze texts and the authors themselves. So you want to know the context that the author is writing this from. You want to know what their personal life was like, how it influenced the product that they put out. So I think that's most feels like home to me, why I would look into this author, because I had thoughts when I was reading it. So basically, the novel tracks three generations of women. So Bubby, her daughter, and then Amy, the granddaughter. So there's this play in their family, kind of. So Amy and her mother and the rest of the family kind of joke around about Bubby and kind of downplay her struggles in the Holocaust and kind of don't want to hear about it. So I thought that was very interesting, in that Amy introduces the concept of the Holocaust and the memory of it as something that we don't want to talk about anymore. So then she introduces her mother. So she states that her mother has grappled with immigrant status, the lack of a homeland, the inevitable identity crisis. Her fears and memories are real. So her mother really forces down Holocaust memory. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She just wants to move on with her life in the United States. And I thought that this cartoon strip was so telling of the way graphic novels can, and their illustrations can enhance literacy. So, the quote that goes with it, she grappled with the lack of a homeland, identity crisis, so she's kind of lost, she's out of place. And as you can see, she's struggling to fix these flowers perfectly, and there are some flowers out of place, so maybe, she's represented by the flowers themselves that she's trying to kind of control. So I thought it was a great cartoon strip and a representation of her mother. So then you have Amy herself, and she is so interested in uncovering the past and figuring out where she comes from, her legacy. And what she does, what this graphic novel tells us, is that she is uncovering her grandmother's story. So, here she's uncovering Bubby's past. And throughout the graphic novel, it switches from Bubby's story to Amy's. And here you have these amazing graphics on her grandmother's experiences in the Holocaust and the Warsaw Ghetto. So you see her sister dying in the Warsaw, and then this picture over here is describing how she had to cut her hair because she got sick. And she says, in the quote here in this picture, it says, "Okay, it would grow back. My parents, my family, my life would not." So, that's kind of like a metaphor. Hair grows back, but family you lost is not. And I think, again, great symbolism with these pictures and how it relates to the concept she's getting at. So, and overall for this novel, I think it really relates. It's a story about forming a personal identity, and that's what Amy's telling us about. She's telling us about her journey to her coming of age, to her identity. And she states that I claimed my birthright in the Holy Land when I was 20 years old. I'd never been around this many Jews before, and I resolved to shun away any forced camaraderie. I refused to be sold an identity or a family. So she's really saying here that she's going to analyze the situation herself. She's going to come up with her own identity no matter what anybody says. And I just think that is a great concept for our students to know about. And overall, this author study has really hit home that authors write about their own experiences, that their personal tribulations, and that students can really relate to these, because I'm sure some of them are going through similar things. Forming an identity, searching for an identity is a widely accepted concept for adolescents. So, as I said, classification about the graphic novel that I read and how it relates to Amy's life is really what I focused on in this author study. I really enjoyed the author study. This is something that I definitely want to do with my students because it really teaches them analytic skill in deciphering what the author is trying to say and how their context and how their past has shaped what they're writing about. So I really loved this activity, and thank you for watching.